idealist. He's always writing. He's always giving good ideas. Is he a good leader?
No.
Yes.
He is a good leader, but from afar. Okay? The reason for that is that Lenin dies right after the revolution is successful. So the revolution starts in 1917. By 1922, so only 5 years later, Lenin is dead. So his ideas are wonderful. He starts a wonderful revolution, but can he actually put it into practice? No, that's going to be the problem. That's the problem with old major. They're very theoretical. Okay, it looks really good on paper. Justice and equality looks good on paper. You just told me so, that if you were poor, you'd like socialism, right? What is the problem? What's the problem?
How can like protect from other people not getting richer?
Exactly, that's a problem. How do you make sure that everyone's absolutely the same and nobody's getting richer? And that's what neither Lenin nor old major could see. They didn't have enough time to see it put into practice, okay? So Lenin or old major, what they promote are no social classes. Everyone's exactly the same. What happens if you have 2 houses and you only need 1? What's going to happen to your second house? The government is going to take it and give it to someone else, right? Because someone else deserves it. So is everyone going to be happy with that?
No.
Not so much, because maybe you work really hard to have that second house, even if you don't need it. So that's where the change between capitalism and socialism happens, okay? And Boxer, you guys remember Boxer? Who's Boxer? Yeah, and he's a what? A horse. So he works really hard all the time, right? So the proletariats, which means peasants or workers, are what Lenin really got into the revolution, made him believe that this was really going to be good for you. In the beginning of the book, is Boxer happy? Once the revolution in the farm succeeds, is he happy? Yeah, he's really thinking, this is going to be my chance. And that's how many workers actually felt. Finally, no more Tsar, no more repression. We're actually going to get our shots at an okay life, or a good life, okay? So that's what you need to know about Lenin, okay? And this is a poster that I found. It's from the Soviet Union, and it represents Marx, who wrote the Communist Manifesto. Remember I told you the theory? Engels, who wrote the book with him, and this is Lenin, okay? So just so you get an idea that even for the Russians, after Lenin was gone, he was the example of what to follow. He was the perfect socialist. So perfect that you guys can still visit Lenin. Where? He lies in a glass casket in the middle of Moscow, so you can go see his mummy, even nowadays. He's kind of rotten now, but you can still see him, all right? So you guys, that's how much of an example he was to the people. Yeah, they mummified him about 100 years ago. Almost 100 years, yep. All right, so now let's look at Trotsky. So, what usually happens when you have a really good leader, somebody that people look up to, and he dies? What then happens to his ideals? They either fall, they either die, or somebody has to go after them. Somebody has to lead. Kind of like, have you guys seen the case of Chavez and Maduro? Chavez was the great leader, and now Maduro is kind of following in his steps. So this is kind of what happened, or what Lenin hoped Trotsky would do. So we're going to look at Leon Trotsky. That's not actually his name. This is a pen name that he used. He was actually Jewish, and he's represented by Snowball in the book. Okay? So Trotsky was kind of Lenin's right hand, his best friend. Like Lenin, he was a philosopher. He liked the ideas. Which ideas? Socialism, communism, Marx's ideas. So Trotsky was also extremely well educated. He was not poor. He was born into middle upper class family, and he had learned a lot. And so he had excellent he was an excellent writer, but he had no good oral skills. So he liked writing. He liked talking about philosophy with his friends. But was he good at talking to large groups of people?
No.
Not really, okay? Do you have a question?
No, not good.
Okay. So basically, although he wasn't good at talking to a lot of people, Lenin wanted him to inherit power in order to keep the revolution alive. That doesn't actually happen because Lenin dies, and although he wanted Trotsky to take over, there's another guy who gets in the way, Stalin. Okay? Stalin is a lot more practical. He says all this dreaming about the socialism and these ideas, they're all good for the books, but what happens in reality? Yeah, it could be a disaster if I don't control these people. Imagine you guys, you have a really good idea, but I'm now going to put you in control of 1 million people with that good idea. Is it just as easy as it seemed?
No.
No, you've got to control the people, you've got to feed them, you've got to create an army, you've got to give them houses. There are all these things to do. So Stalin actually decides that Trotsky is an enemy to the state, okay? Nobody really knows how that trial happened, and exiles him to Mexico. Trotsky actually lived the last years of his life in Frida Kahlo's house. Have you guys know who Frida Kahlo is?
Yes.
Who is she?
It's a painter.
Yeah, she was a painter, right, who lived in Mexico, along with her husband as well. And so he lived with them because they were also socialists. And from their house, he also, Trotsky, kept on writing, okay? Kind of like Snowball. Does Snowball try to come back and bring information in and out of the farm sometimes? You guys notice that? Sometimes he comes back. You're not there yet? Okay, well, he's going to try to do that a little bit, okay? And he does, however, try to send information out through Mexico about what's going on in Russia. Is Stalin going to like that?
No.
No. So Stalin, besides having been in exile in Mexico, has him killed in Mexico eventually. Okay, his assassins killed him in Mexico. So it kind of goes to show what Stalin is going to be like. So this, again, two examples of how equal and fair this revolution is going to be. The first example is who got murdered? The Tsar. And now, a few years later, Trotsky or Snowball, he's also going to get assassinated. So again, is it as fair as it seems? No, so it's a lot easier on paper than in real life. And the reason for that is that Trotsky was too orthodox for real life. He lived too stuck in books and didn't actually see the reality. What's more, Marx does not promote violence in his book, but Trotsky founded the Red Army. The Red Army would be the basis for one of the most violent and oppressive armies in the world, okay? And so he's the founder of that Red Army that will have a lot of people killed eventually, and him included, all right, which is a little bit of the irony, okay? All right, and here's a quote. This is not an actual picture, but it's based on a picture of him. It's a poster. And here's a quote that he talked about. The end may justify the means as long as there's something that justifies the end. He says, whatever you have to do it if, what? If your objective is good enough to justify it. So if I've got to kill in order to keep 1 million people happy, but I've got to kill maybe 1 or 2, is that okay? You say maybe yes, it depends on the case. So just how you see how orthodox he is. He's really looking at the theory, not looking at the practice. Is one life worth less than 1 million lives?
No.
Not necessarily, right? So that's what he didn't really come into looking at. However, Trotsky, on the outside, was very well looked upon because of the Jewish community, because he was Jewish. And outside, also a lot of people read about him because of his philosophy. So he also founded what was called the Third International, which was kind of like the UN, but for communist countries. Okay? All right. Now let's look at Napoleon. Maybe our strongest character in Animal Farm. You're all familiar with Napoleon, right? Okay, so Napoleon is Joseph Stalin. Okay, Stalin will take power over after Lenin is gone and after he's exiled Trotsky. Stalin was not very theoretical. He had not read the Communist Manifesto. He probably didn't care so much. Stalin cared about making sure the revolution succeeded. He wanted to make sure that it's going to last and it's going to last forever. So he was a very practical man, okay? And the reason that Orwell calls him Napoleon is also because he named him after Napoleon, okay? Napoleon Bonaparte, who was also the emperor of one of the biggest empires that Europe saw in the early modern world. And so Joseph Stalin, and in the book Napoleon, he's given this name because he's going to be very authoritarian. He is going to be very oppressive. He's going to be very practical. Things are going to get done. Am I going to ask questions about it if I'm Napoleon?
No.
No, I'm going to get things done and I'm going to tell you how to do them, and that's that, because it's going to work, okay? What happens when you guys are in a leadership position? First of all, you start being, because somebody asks you, okay, you're going to take care of this class. Maybe Tiffany's going to be gone and she's going to say, okay, you're going to take care of this class while I'm gone for 5 minutes, okay? Are you up for the challenge? Yes, maybe, okay. She's gone, all right? And then these people start being really loud, and you're going to get in trouble if she comes back and they're all loud. What are you going to be like?
I'm going to tell them to be quiet.
And what if they keep up and they're not quiet? What are you going to do?
Threaten.
You start threatening them, okay? How does that feel when you start threatening people and you feel like you're bigger or more powerful than they are? How does it feel? It feels good, doesn't it? It gives you a sense of power. You feel important. You feel like, I can control these people. When you guys are out with your friends and you guys decide something to do, maybe do something that's not very smart, but everyone's listening to you. Does that feel good? Sure, even if it's not something that you feel like, oh, this is the smartest choice, but people are listening to me, I am important, it makes you feel good. This is how Napoleon or Stalin probably abused power from the beginning, okay? So, the Bolshevik Party, you remember who they were? The workers, the Revolutionary Party, right? So, he gets the Bolshevik Party to elect him as the next leader of this communist Russia. Third mistake in a communist regime, should there be a leader?
No.
In a perfect communist state, there should be no leader. Is this a perfect communist state, therefore? No. So again, we're going against the theory, and it's becoming more the reality, okay? So as I said, Stalin is very practical, not philosophical. He's not going to sit around and read books like Trotsky does, all right? Like Lenin did. Stalin is going to get to the point, and he's going to get things done. And one of the things that he realizes he has to do is get rid of all those people that don't like socialism, okay? So let's go back to our experiment. Let's say, okay, all these people, all right, to the left of Tiffany, you guys are all workers, okay? During the Russian Empire and during the Revolution. You guys over here, the four of you, you are my high class. You're not workers, you're nobility, you're related to the Tsar, you're high class, okay? When the revolution happens, okay, are you for or against the revolution?
For.
Raise your hand if you're for. Okay. Who's undecided? Okay. And what about this side? Who's on?
Against.
You're against. Are you all against the revolution? Yes. Okay. I am Stalin. This is a new revolution. This is a new system. Can I afford having people that are against me? No. So I will start something that I will call the purges. I'm going to get rid of them. So I'm going to get them and put them in trials, because this is treason to the state. They've done and said something against socialism. I'm going to do a quick trial, find him guilty, and make him disappear to the Siberia. Where's the Siberia?
No. Yeah, no.
Can you go point it out for me? Can you guys all look back at the map so you can find where the Siberia is? You guys see where the Siberia is? And usually, what kind of weather do you have up there?
It's cold.
It's cold. It's frozen all year round. Okay? So,